We're sitting here at Grafton Water today. The reason we're here is we're precision soil sampling. The nature of the business that Agri-Tech operates, we run precision farming, a range of precision farming services. Irrigation management is another key part to our business, and weather monitoring and climate monitoring. But the three areas all sort of dovetail quite nicely with each other. So we find a lot of our clients that use irrigation management also need precision farming and vice versa. Up until now we've ran 5 quads. 3 of them are for hand sampling, 2 kitted up with an automated sampler such as we have fitted to this machine. But we then took the decision about 12 months ago to look at I think they call them UTVs, these vehicles. And we felt that JCB was the one that had the best build quality, good local dealer support, which really drove us to going down the JCB route. And I have to say, since purchasing this, you'd never want to go back to operating a quad again in a hurry. We've certainly seen increased output from the machine, and of course longer days. You can spend more hours on this in comfort than you can on a quad bike, particularly in the winter with a cab like this on you. You're in the warm, you're in the dry. On a quad, you're very much open to the elements. So it's it's been a major. It's radically changed the way in which we operate a business. Whenever we do any form of sampling, be it PCN or nutrient, the first thing we do is create a boundary map. From a boundary map, what I mean is we drive around the outside of a field and determine the size of that field. And then depending on whether we're doing PCN sampling or soil sampling, we'll grid it. And the grid essentially is then guiding us to specific locations within the field. Then using the screen here, the driver very rarely looks out the windscreen, his eyes fixed on the screen here, trying to avoid trees and telegraph poles in the field, but the screen here is really the guidance point. And every time we come to a circle, the circle is a position where we take a sample. So we drive to the circle, stop the vehicle, take the soil sample, move on to the next circle. And we have a track that tracks the vehicle. The reason we have that is for traceability. So the client can see exactly where we've driven within that field. So you can see that we've covered the whole field, not skipped parts of it. And that was also from robust data perspective, it's important. I think where this type of vehicle comes into its own is for the automated sampler, which we have rigged on the side here. Quads really aren't big enough. You end up pushing the quad bike up in the sky as opposed to the sampler going into the soil. They're not really man enough for it. This is obviously a different beast altogether. Where we're covering a whole hectare as opposed to point sampling, then the automated sampler comes into its own, and a vehicle such as this. But of course, comfort has a big role to play in it. Look at the modern day tractor compared to a tractor 40 years ago, they're worlds apart. The modern day tractor is like sitting in your armchair. I wouldn't quite say it's like sitting in your armchair, but it's a lot better than sitting on a quad bike all day long. Each have got their place. But these vehicles will certainly feature very highly in our business. The other big advantage, one I haven't mentioned, is of course we've got a road legal kit on this. We can legally kit 2 people in here driving down the road. We've got quite a decent payload area behind us. So even within our irrigation management business, the quads weren't pertinent to use. These could be for carrying equipment about to remote locations, or when the going's tough, or where the farmer doesn't want compaction from, or tracks being tuned up by 4x4s. This is the perfect solution. And what we found is, although you think, well, a top speed of 29 miles an hour is actually it takes a long time to get from A to B. In reality, it doesn't. You're not that much slower. Once you've got to a location where you've got a heap of work to do, you're not that much slower in a vehicle like this as you are a car. So for us, it's trying to get the maximum out of the machine and making it as flexible as possible. I guess at the heart of it is this little GPS unit here. We use DGPS to get accuracy on the signal, and essentially this guides us to where we need to take our soil samples from. The location's accurate to within about 30 centimetres, and the point being we can go back to that same location at any future date. To the left of me here we've got the automated sampler on the UTV. All of the soil sampling that we do is based on RB209, which is an industry standard. We're sampling to between 6 and 8 inches, covering the whole field, which is what the DGPS essentially is enabling us to do, such that from our client's perspective there's full traceability of where the samples have been taken. They're geo-referenced, obviously for accuracy, and indeed for repeatability. We can go back to the same place if need be, sometime later, to resample, to compare what's happened over the course of time. So we've got the automated sampler sitting here, but all can be operated from this seat. And that's the beauty of this machine, is that the way we've got it set up, the driver does not have to leave this seat ever. Once we're into the field, he's off and away, and what's important to us is getting the hectares knocked out. So the whole thing can be operated from here, the emptying of the bucket into a bag, and that to me was important. We see many vehicles such as this with the sampler mounted on the front of the vehicle, which might have been the easier option, but what it would mean is every time the bucket needed emptying, we'd have to stop and get out. That would significantly slow down the work rate. So we've kitted this out in the way in which we wanted it kitted out, with the support of the local dealer, and it's we haven't looked back since we've done it. We had this machine specially kitted out by MKM Agriculture are our local dealers, and that was another reason really for choosing JCB over an alternative make. It wasn't just the machine that was important to us, it's dealer support. When this thing's rolling, it's got to roll every day. It's a bit like a combine harvester to a farmer. When it's sitting in the shed, it's doing nothing. When the weather's right, we've got to be going, and so reliability is important, but also that backup, and we've had every bit of that from MKM. The payback to the farmer is immense. He's placing his fertiliser exactly where it's needed. When we're sampling for potato cyst nematode, he's putting the nematicide exactly where it's needed. Nematicide costs an awful lot of money, £250 a hectare. If we can save 3 or 4 hectares of nematicide application, A, it saves the farmer money, and B, it's more environmentally friendly. We're not putting a nasty nematicide down where it's not needed. So it has there's a financial payback to the grower very often, but also an environmental payback too. We're putting nutrients and fertiliser exactly where it's needed. We're not just doing what we think we're doing from a bit of gut feel. There's some science attached to it. We looked at many UTVs when we decided we were going to go down this route. I've already mentioned dealer support was important to us, but we looked around all of them, and frankly the JCB Workmax is the one that stood out from the crowd in terms of its build quality. You could tell it was a JCB, it wasn't made out of Mickey Mouse metal. Which may sound silly, but at the end of the day these machines are put over some fairly rough terrain. We want reliability, we want this thing to still be going in 5 years' time. So for us, the JCB Workmax has definitely been the right decision. Haven't looked back on it, and I've no doubt within the next 2 years there'll be a second unit in operation.